The concept of toxic masculinity is used in academic and media discussions of masculinity to refer to certain cultural norms that are associated with harm to society and men themselves. Traditional stereotypes of men as socially dominant, along with related traits such as misogyny, can be considered toxic due in part to their promotion of violence, including sexual assault and domestic violence. Our discussion today is around understanding the impact of toxic masculinity and how it perpetuates violence. And I have my guests on the line. We know Temba Masango from Not in My Name. He is the Secretary General, and we have Zahara Musomi, who's a human rights activist and also a feminist. Assalamu alaikum to both of you, and thank you for joining me.
Walaikum salam, Miriam, and good morning to all the listeners, and thank you for inviting us.
Temba, are you there?
I'm here, my brother. And thank you so much for inviting us. And we're happy to be here.
All right. So just for some clarity, it's a she. I'm a she. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, I'd like to ask both of you. I just gave a brief Wikipedia answers to what toxic masculinity is, but to you, let's start with you, Zahara. What does toxic masculinity mean to you?
So, firstly, I think it's very important for us to firstly clarify how society frames toxic masculinity, and some men particularly see it as some form of feminist concept that is there to diminish them or to degrade their manhood. And I just want to clarify that it's not a feminist tactic to try and garner people to hate on men or to try and push some fictitious agenda that men usually have. But toxic masculinity, rather, and fighting against it is a wake up call for every man to stop exuding manners and stop exuding ways that are dehumanizing to us as women, that even endanger our lives. And that's how we link it up with gender based violence. And in a way, when we do so, we are breaking down patriarchal constructs that have made women suffer for the longest time over.
Mm-hmm. Temba, what's your take on toxic masculinity? What does it mean to you?
Definitely, I agree with you, sister. And, we as a people in the country have been socialized around the toxic masculinity where, even young boys, when you grow up, you are told that you are better than the female counterpart by virtue of being a boy. The other thing is, religion, culture, uh, and society as a whole. You get a situation in the household where, after supper, the girls are told to rise to bed, wash the dishes, and the boys can continue playing games or going outside and playing. And that creates a mindset, even at that early age, that we being a man uh, automatically equates way of being more important and better. And that is toxic by nature in itself because then you tend to lose the respect, the love, and the ability to actually see one past their sex or their gender.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm trying to figure out here, is
Mhm.
there perhaps, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Will you hear me?
Yes, I'm trying to figure out perhaps something wrong with the term toxic masculinity. Is there a problem with this term?
I believe so because I think that the masculinity itself, there's nothing wrong with being masculine. I think that's how God created men. But when it becomes toxic and in the sense that it then becomes to the detriment of other people, and if your masculinity becomes danger and it's weaponized, or it becomes a situation where people are no longer safe around you or happy around you, and then it means that your toxic, your masculinity is definitely toxic. So you are no longer a provider, a carer, a protector, but you're an abuser, a perpetrator, and that's what actually why it comes to be toxic.
Mm-hmm. Right. Zahara, what are some of the things that men say or do that escalates toxic masculinity? From your experience, having brothers and also, going to university and being around men in general.
Oh, what I do believe does ensure that toxic masculinity is kept alive in society is seeing that there's this constant promotion or this constant culture that is ingrained in men of entitlement to a woman's body, of a man being dominant, that as a man you need to be desensitized, you don't need to be an empath as a man. These very chauvinistic principles that are continuously played out in society and encouraged in young men particularly to be misogynistic, that it's okay for a man to harass a woman, that it's part of a man in promoting such culture and doing so. When we see men being bullies, them not being called out about it, and their behavior not being addressed, um, rape culture and violence being promoted. And it's very harmful because this doesn't only affect the individual, but it affects others too as well, and it affects not only just the man, but it affects the man in a way that you see them now suffering from mental health issues, from depression, from very high levels of victimization and imprisonment as well. And we also see that they resort to drugs at times, but we also see that it also affects other people as well, particularly people that are around those men, because we see people living in constant fear of being around such people, people having their lives endangered, etc. So toxic masculinity does not only affect the individual, but it affects everyone else. And we just came back from the 19th of November, which marked International Men's Day. And on that day, on that day in particular, we see that there are increased calls and efforts to create a culture where toxic masculinity is not a factor. And I believe that when I look at the men around me and the country that I live in, we simply can't have just one single day when we battle a monster like this every single day. It can't be that we are programmed to believe that men will suddenly abandon a culture that they have adopted for so many years and for such an incredibly long time, that on one day they'll just leave it, or that they'll be no longer expected to exhibit those toxic traits, because it's something that's very unrealistic and out of touch. And that is why it becomes incredibly important that we as a society, we unlearn and we relearn what it means to be a man, because it becomes a very integral part of who we are as a people. Because
Mm.
unlearning and relearning what it means to be a man in a healthy way does not only impact the individual, but everyone else as well. And that is why we all need to be involved in ensuring that we do combat against the behavior of this nature that is harmful and damaging to everyone, particularly now when we are raising sons and daughters who must be people who show kindness, who are humble, who are emotionally intelligent, and who are grounded by sound morals and values. And I include women in this because sometimes, sadly, we as women too can exhibit and display toxic masculinity, and we can enforce it and plant such ideas in our children's minds. So that's why it's very important for all of us to participate in combating and fighting against toxic masculinity.
Mm-hmm. Temba, I can hear you agreeing there in the background. What are your thoughts on what Zahara has just shared?
No, definitely. And I think it's very important when it comes to the issue of learning and unlearning, traits that have been passed down to us. And also what you mentioned, which was very important, is, the sense by men that they own women and, as it were, which is completely wrong. And I think what needs to be done further in this situation is also going back the men in the equation to be able to say, we are the ones that do the raping and the abusing and the and all these things that are not right. So we need to be the ones that actually call one another out. We cannot expect women to fight this battle of gender-based violence and toxicity alone. We as men need to be the ones, especially in our private areas when we are sitting at the over the braai, at the car washes, over at the soccer fields, and so on. When we, are together, be able to confront one another and be able to speak to and expose those amongst us that continue toxic traits, which are regressing as we fight against gender-based violence and femicide and all these ideas that perpetuate, toxicity and the misogyny in our spaces. So definitely, we need to make sure that we are highlighting these issues, but furthermore taking tangible action on the ground on a daily basis, and that starts in the home. It starts in the areas where we are as men.
Definitely. And it's so important that men must stand up against those perpetrators of gender-based violence and femicide. We all know someone who has been a victim, but how many people have stood up against and supported the victim? Not many can say that they have, especially the men. We need men to become our protectors and maintainers, just as the Quran speaks about men being the protectors and maintainers of women and children, but we are not seeing that, and which is why we have to have such campaigns like the 16 Days of Activism, which I still find is not enough, to be done to combat gender-based violence. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll continue the discussion and more so on what can we do as a community, as a society to combat this, to win this fight against gender-based violence, if we ever will. So please stay with us. We will be right back.
Looking to get your kick? Kiki's have now reopened on 235 Matthews Maiwa Road in Durban. Head on over for the Taste with Kick. We offer something scrumptious for everyone in the family. Wraps, chicken tikka, burgers, tender grills, mocktails, milkshakes, and so much more. Corporate and events catering available. Visit our social media pages for more info or call 031 209 0119. Kiki's, the Taste with Kick.
Little bare feet on the icy wet ground, a shiver at his lips, mud on his clothes. When he is cold, the hunger is worse, the nights are longer, and the pain is more severe. What if this was your child? The Al-Imdad Foundation's Global Winter Appeal allows you to make a difference for refugees, IDPs, and struggling communities in 21 countries globally. Sponsor a winter pack today for just 600 Rand. Donate online at alimdad.com or call 0861 786 243.
For a long time, we've lived in a centralized world where institutions held the all-important data and confirmed all transactions. Those times are over. Welcome to Libertas Group, a blockchain developing company boasting an ecosystem that continually redefines the way we do business. Our blockchain is decentralized, making it immune to hacking or alteration, putting the power back in your hands with no middleman so you can focus on the growth of your business. Libertas, the simplest investment choice you'll make.
Shimmer, sparkle, captivate. Nothing less than a masterpiece. Droplets of gold inspires precious design. Platinum bursts with intricate freshness, and every pure diamond becomes more than just a girl's best friend. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, where timeless dreams become a reality. Come to us. We tailor-make designer gold, platinum, and diamond jewelry. Trade in or remodel your old gold. Clad yourself with classy name-branded watches. We offer insurance valuation and freezer card calculation. Visit us at 534 Ridge Road, Overport, or call 031 208 9142. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, manufacturers of fine gold and diamond jewelry.
Your act of love gives hope. Islamic Relief supports orphans and vulnerable children in 28 countries with food, education, and medical care. There are more than 150 million orphans in the world. You can give hope to one. Sponsor an orphan today. Go to www.islamic-relief.org.za.
Listen to something fresh. Listen to Salam Media.
It's 11:20. You are listening to the Mid-Morning Talk on Salam Media with me, Mara Mukwanda, and we are talking about the impact of toxic masculinity and how it perpetuates gender-based violence. We are still in the 16 days of activism of no children, but we all know now that violence is not just against women and children, but men as well. And we're not going to talk about that right now, since our discussion
Sorry, I'm
is...
sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Zahara.
I can't hear you at all. I cannot.
How about now? All right, Zahara, if you can't hear me, just try refreshing, or if you can hear me, then that's great. Let's see, we're going to get studio to sort that out on the other side. But in the meantime, while I'm still with Temba, Temba, are you still on the line?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, I still can hear you, Zahara.
Oh, okay, good. I can hear you too. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Okay, if anyone has any comments or questions for our guests, please leave them in the comment section or send them to us on WhatsApp. And the number is 061 7660355. Temba, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Fantastic. Now, you work with the organization Not In My Name. Now, what can organizations such as Not In My Name do with men and boys to address this issue of toxic masculinity and gender-based violence?
Yes, thank you so much for the question. In fact, I don't know if you know this, but we run a very successful program called Not In My Name, but only specifically designed around boys, because we feel that the neglected boy becomes then obviously a future perpetrator. And in our quest of actually advancing young girls and so on, we need to make sure that we keep the ball up to pace, but also, as we said earlier, where we teach and also show each other and relearn and teach better skills to young boys. We've got a saying that says it's rain that grows plants and not thunder and lightning. For them to understand that you don't have to be physical and fighting all the time, but you can actually, debate issues and you can bring your point across without being violent. Two, as men, we can be in touch with our own masculinity and our own selves as who we are as a people, and also be able to, get away from these things where we are saying tigers don't cry and so on, because we know that, kept up, issues inside and which are not expressed tend to sometimes explode in future. So, yeah, those are part of the programs that we are having.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's fantastic. That's great. There's this term, boys will be boys, and coming back again to the use of language. Zahara, according to you, what is wrong with the statement, boys will be boys?
Oh, that is a very problematic statement, because that statement tends to encourage men's behaviors and not addressing the problems that they do commit, and that it's a very problematic statement, because as much as we speak about how concepts of freedoms are intersectional. It's very important for us to address how concepts of oppression are also intersectional. And statements of that nature continue to endorse and to foster toxic masculinity. They try to make it seem as though it is okay for you as a man to behave in a manner that is unacceptable. But at the same time, it would also call out a woman if she acts out of character, as they would deem it. It continues to create this very social construct that is very harmful to women, that is very harmful to the man himself as well, because it tells you that you don't have to have any form of introspection on your behavior, that you can continue acting in the manner that you do act without any recourse or without anyone having to prosecute you for whatever it is that you are doing. So it lets men know that criminality, etc., all things of that nature are normal, and your behavior as a man that is toxic is very much fine, and you can continue doing so.
I believe that language use is very important. There are so many statements that encourage toxic masculinity, even saying something like, I'm an alpha male, or a man cannot be in touch with his feminine side, a man cannot be emotional, a man cannot be an empath, etc. Those are problematic, and it comes down to the use of language. We need to understand these statements, and when we understand them, we'll be able to turn the toxic masculinity into positive masculinity instead. With you, Temba, what are your thoughts on such other statements that perpetuates toxic masculinity?
Definitely, I think my sister is quite right by saying that it is problematic, because when you're saying boys will be boys, especially when it's said around the context of not, adhering to, principles of like people, of also, when we're doing wrong, and then we just want to say that, boys are going to be boys. It's completely terrible and completely wrong. So we should not allow that, and instead we should actually be teaching young boys how to behave and what to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, final thoughts, takeaway points, Temba?
But I definitely think, once again, is to go back to the issue that as men, we need to see ourselves as partners and as counterparts in this fight against gender-based violence and femicide in our country. We need to make sure that we call one another out, we speak, truth to power, wherever it is, the ugly head of toxic masculinity rises its head. We need to also make sure that at all times we are careful about what and how we say, so that we can actually teach the next generation that's coming behind us that we can actually have a fulfilling life without being misogynist and toxic.
Mm-hmm. And your final thoughts, Zahara?
I just want to emphasize that it's important as a country, as a society, as the world in general, that we need to rid ourselves of toxic masculinity, that we need to move away from this very archaic and outdated idea of what a man needs to be. We need to be of a view that allows a man to be vulnerable, for him to be open, to be in touch with their emotions, and that allows for them to be human. We need this, particularly in a country where it's estimated that 116 women are raped daily, where a woman is killed every 3 hours, and where over 12,000 women have been raped just alone in this year. And there is so much that we can do, and men in particular can do. You can speak out and call out behavior that is toxic. Forget about the whole thing of, the bro code or whatever. That is toxic as well. We need to teach young men to have good values. We need men in our society to realize that it is okay for you to go to therapy, that you do get to talk about what troubles you, so you do get to talk about what unsettles you, that more importantly, you need to express your emotions and don't be repressive, that it's okay for you as a man to be sensitive, to be soft, for you to be light, for you to even cry, that you get to even love people, that you get to nurture those who are dear to you as loud as you want. That it's not healthy as a man for you to live in denial. And it's very important, particularly to the young men out here, that you need to break the pattern. And for as long as we continue to endorse or to enact or to embody or to encourage the continuous of toxic masculinity, then we are going to be regressive as a society and counter-revolutionary to the fight against gender-based violence. So we need to ensure that we all dedicate to working towards eradicating such a concept in our society, and that we work towards creating positive masculinity. And I think it would be befitting to say that pantsing a toxic masculinity pantsy.
Pansy. And thank you to both of you for your time and for contributing to our discussion on toxic masculinity. It is 11:30, so let me bid you farewell. Have a wonderful day. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Mariam. Walaikum salam. And thank you to all the listeners as well.
That was Temba Masango from Not In My Name, and Zahara Msomi, who is a human rights activist and feminist, talking about toxic masculinity and how it perpetuates and contributes to gender-based violence. Very important points that were brought up there, but if you missed out, you can view the discussion on Facebook after this. Just follow Salam Media. It is 11:30. Please stay with us. We will be right back.
From the townships of South Africa